Music is racist. Not really. What I mean to say is that there's an element of racism in music that is purposely swept under the rug. So while music itself isn't racist, although it can be, the roots of many of its aspects are, or at least have an element of racism inside. Now, I am by all means not the first person to say this or come up with this revelation. God, no. If I was, I would be dumbfounded. Racism in music has been brought up by, it's safe to say, hundreds of people throughout history. Like, for instance, Philip Ewell. In my opinion, Ewell is such an important person in the topic of racism in music, especially music theory. While he isn't the first person to delve into the topic, he is a catalyst. He's written countless articles, blogs, presented lectures and talks, and he's even written a book about it. That book being On Music Theory and Making Music More Welcoming for Everyone. Before or after watching this video, you're still interested in this topic, I would heavily suggest reading this book because it's so good. Ewell is such an amazing writer, and I give all props to him, honestly. Now, even though this book mainly focuses on music theory, you can still apply many of its aspects to music as a whole. And if we're going to touch on racism in music, we cannot talk about such a topic without mentioning classical music and music theory.
You want me to think you're loud?
When you're thinking of classical music, you're probably thinking of the big three. The big three being Mozart, Beethoven, and Bach. It's understandable, really. I mean, they're considered the great for a reason. And I'm not here to say that they're actually overrated and you shouldn't be listening to them or studying them, but them being the big three is inherently a problem. To be frank, they're all white. All three of them. White men. You're telling me that when these three were playing in every club in England, popping bottles of champagne, getting messed up, there was nobody on par. Nobody even considered to be great. And I'm not talking about any other white dude like Chopin or Claude Debussy. I'm talking minorities. If you search up composers on Google and click show more, out of the 51 that show up, 4 of them are women and 3 of them are black. 7.84% women and 5.88% black people. That is a failing grade. Hey, but look, there's our boy, Claude Debussy and Hans Zimmer. No hate to Hans Zimmer. Please, don't hurt me. No hate to Hans Zimmer. Glad he made the list. But you see how insane that is? There is such an influx of white men that are studied and considered great, which overshadows any other BIPOC or women, which could be the same thing. This is where the white supremacy and the white man hierarchy that has plagued America comes to play in music, or more specifically, music theory. In chapter 2 on white mythologies of On Music Theory, there is a section titled White Supremacy, with a quote of John Oliver saying, "White supremacy is a belief that in a country where white people are dominant, that's all down to their natural and innate abilities, and any effort to change that is an affront to the natural order of things." It's strange to think that in music, a form of expression, as well as an art form that is practiced in every country, every culture around the world, we should only study and learn from white men because they're great and the best. Again, I'm not saying that they aren't great, but rather that they aren't the only composers in the world that should be studied as heavily as they are currently. In the West, when we do look at other cultures and we analyze their music, we don't call that music theory as a whole. Rather, we call it Russian music theory or East Asian music theory. But our music theory, and by our, I mean the West, it's just considered music theory. The textbooks that are studied have just music theory on the front. It's okay to categorize and understand the differences between cultures, but when you define a culture's music theory as just music theory, you inherently define it as the music theory that shapes all music around the world, when that just isn't true. There's so many differences around the world that the Western music theory just cannot define all and stand in as the ideal that it is made out to be. What's important to realize is that whether we want to admit it or not, and I'm sure some people don't want to admit to, music theory is racist. This is mainly because of the way that it's set up. An element of music theory is its white racial frame, as Ewell puts it. He quotes the sociologist Joe Fegan's definition of white racial frame to apply it to music theory. The definition being an overarching white worldview that encompasses a broad and persisting set of racial stereotypes, prejudices, ideologies, images, interpretations, narratives, emotions, and reactions to language accents, as well as racialized inclination to discriminate. The white racial frame is not just exclusive to music, I should add. It can be added to other things as well. Ewell adds on later that one may think immediately of negative stereotypes of blacks and question whether they apply to music theory. What I stress at this point, however, is not so much negative black stereotypes as positive white stereotypes. And this shows when we look at the big three, or the influx of white composers that are held up so high. This element of music theory isn't brought up enough because it's uncomfortable, really. People don't want to admit that the main thing that is in the background of music theory as a whole, and has been there since the beginning, is racist. Ewell states that the most important function of the white racial frame is to keep the system as it is, and this heavily shows today. I mean, one of the both most surprising but also not surprising things in this book is the response to Ewell's work in the field of music theory. There's a section titled in the book, Anti-Black Hate Directed at Me for My Anti-Racist Work in Music Theory, that is frankly a section of disgust. The examples vary from mild, like Beethoven was an above-average composer, let's leave it at that, to, and a warning here if you don't like to see pure hatred written down. Skip to here if you don't want to hear or see it, but I suggest you do just because of how insane it is. I gotta channel my inner Reddit incel here. Why you playing whitey instrument, N-word? That's one. Let that sink in for a second. And here's this insane one. Disgusting N-word, mutant. You funky piece of shit. Hate white people, but you went after the white man's daughter because you know that the black women are trash. You deserve to be beaten to death, N-word. Wow, he's got away with words, doesn't he? Such a poet. Now, I show you these messages here not as shock value, but to show the lengths of how far people will go to protect the white man hierarchy that is placed in music. To show so much hate to one person challenging against the white man hierarchy. Like, one person. It's baffling, but then again, we've seen this countless times throughout history. The Civil War started because poor white people didn't want their slaves that they worked oh so hard for, along with other reasons. I don't know if classical music will ever realize and try to fix the problems that it blatantly has, because it takes a lot of work that white men aren't willing to do. But I damn well hope it does. And it's not like people aren't trying to show that classical music is racist, or that they aren't trying to try and fix the problems, but it's white men are stubborn, especially towards their white man hierarchy and to their power. However, that's not the only music that is around today. Let's talk about the music of today's world. Jazz, baby. Pianos, bars, the weirdest chords imaginable with the most complex name you've ever seen, and just vibes all around. Today, jazz is thought of as skilled and high class, one might say. But that's not what it always was viewed as. Jazz's roots in African American culture caused many problems in the 1920s. Cars, telephones, and radios being spread around America, and what's this music that's playing out on my radio? It's new, it's exciting, it's different. You call it jazz? It's... Wait. Black people made this? Oh, no. Actually, now it's disgusting and I hate it. This is a rough translation of the 1920s first reaction to jazz, but it shows how even though a different majority of people were reacting positively to jazz at the time, there was still disgust and resentment to jazz because, well, it was made by black people. Still, though, that didn't stop people from enjoying it, and eventually more and more people were like, hey, this isn't too bad. And then when the racists started to really play jazz, they were also like, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought. But they didn't just accept jazz, they took it a step further. In the wrong direction. Instead of understanding that jazz is an African American form of music, they decided, let's just, 1, ignore that we never liked jazz in the first place, and 2, say this is an American form of music. And the origin of jazz actually started with the original Dixieland Jazz Band. Obviously, this belief has changed today because who even the hell is the original Dixieland Jazz Band? But it's still important to realize the switch-up that America had regarding jazz and its African-American roots. Even though jazz was garnering positive reactions from all around, because of the fact that it was made by black people, it wasn't regarded as highly as classical music made by the greats. Only when white people essentially translated the blackness of jazz did it become accepted by the majority. And we still see this today, however, not with jazz, but with hip-hop and rap. Hip-hop having roots of African-American in it just isn't regarded as highly as other types of music, even jazz itself. And people will say, oh, it's because of the themes, but that's only an excuse. They will say that rap only talks about crimes, money, and sex, when literally a bunch of other genres of music do the exact same thing. You don't want songs talking about crimes, but then Iggy Pop's Look Away quite literally opens up with, I slept with Sable when she was 13. And I didn't get that by myself, by the way. I got that from @Bellatown on TikTok. You don't want songs talk about money, but John Anderson has a song called Money in the Bank. I'm not even gonna give you a song talking about sex because you get the picture by now. It's hypocritical to fall back on the excuse of themes to downplay rap and hip-hop when other genres of music do the exact same thing. We all know why you don't want to consider rap music, Ben Shapiro, and it's not because it doesn't have harmony or melody, but because it's made by black people. Which is weird, because he said that in 2019 and then goes and makes a rap song with Tom McDonald in 2024. So which is it, dude? Because rap is made by black people, people don't consider it as highly as classical music, and they call it what I believe they mean, low-form music, meaning that it either doesn't take enough skill or it isn't as complex as other forms of music. This all goes to the point that the majority of people innately feel the need to have this ranking or tier list in their head of what music is. What should be placed at the top and what should be placed at the bottom. This tier list thought in their head directly harms the enjoyment of music. They might say, no, rap isn't placed at the bottom because of racism, but because rap just isn't as elegant as classical music, or an argument like that. Why is that the case, huh? Is it because classical music is filled with white men and rap isn't? Is that the case? No matter how you look at it, if you rank music higher than others, you inherently harm music itself, regardless if you rank rap higher than anything else or vice versa. And this isn't to say you should like rap or you're racist, or to say if you don't enjoy every type of music, then you're racist as well. Because people can enjoy different types of music, but enjoying it is different than inherently ranking it. You might say that there's a time and place for everything, and that an orchestra isn't going to play rap to an audience of classical music theory scholars. And you might be true, but that doesn't have to be the case. I, for one, would love to hear Chief Keef or Uzi being played by an orchestra. Oh wait, that already happens. And even if you took Chief Keef rapping on top out of it, I don't think the average music theory scholar would, 1, realize that it's a rap song, and 2, care that it's a rap song, as long as it sounds like it's coming from an orchestra. I think Ewell puts it beautifully with, we generally have no vertical hierarchy at all, only a very large horizontal axis of human beauty, which most certainly includes white men. We need to appreciate all forms of music, regardless of race, gender, sexual identity, etc., and not in the I don't see color way, but to really dissect and understand the viewpoint of the artist and their culture. be a huge lie to say that it didn't. This Kendrick versus Drake beef is a tell of it getting better. It's so big that people who don't even listen to rap know about it and are following it. Besides the beef, it should be mentioned that rap as a whole is being more and more accepted in the general public as time goes on. And no, I don't think it's because white people translated it like jazz, but because people have started to stop giving a shit about what and who things are coming from. I mean, Kendrick's Humble album won a Pulitzer Prize in 2018. I think people are realizing that rap can be art as well. Finally, it took them long enough. Still though, is this progression actually good? Take for instance, Tyler the Creator's Igor, which won Rap Album of the Year in 2019. I don't know if you listen to Igor, but I wouldn't consider it a rap album. It's strange, and even the person that won the award itself thinks so as well.
I'm half and half on it. On one side, I'm very grateful that what I made could just be, acknowledged in a world like this. But also, it sucks that whenever we, and I mean guys that look like me, do anything that's genre bending or that's anything, they always put it in a rap or urban category, which is, and I don't like that urban word. It's just a politically correct way to say the N-word to me. So when I hear that, I'm just like, why can't we just be in pop? Why can't it just, you know what I mean? So I felt like half of me feels like the rap nomination was a backhanded compliment. Like, my little cousin wants to play the game. Let's give him the unplugged controller so he could shut up and feel good about it. That's what it felt like a bit. But another half of me is very grateful that the art that I made could be acknowledged on a level like this when I don't do the radio stuff. I'm not played in Target. I'm in a whole different world than what a lot of people here listen to. So I'm grateful and
Will this battle for all music to be considered equal, on the same horizontal line, ever be achieved? I sure hope so. But just like everything else that's wrong with America today, we have to fight for it. And fight for it, and fight for it, and fight for it, and fight for it. We won't get anywhere if we just say, hey, this thing is wrong, and not do anything about it. We have to push for more black composers, or any person that isn't a white man to be more studied in music theory. We have to push for more black artists to be considered for more awards in music, or even to consider rap music to be on the same level as classical music. Anything to get things more equal. Racism in music is an active problem, but if we hack at it hard and long enough, maybe it won't be as much as a problem anymore. And then I can hear more Chief Keef being played by old white dudes.